Join us as we sit down with remarkable individuals from various walks of life who faced their fair share of obstacles and emerged with positivity. Each episode, you'll hear inspiring stories, actionable tips, and wisdom that can supercharge your own journey when using adversity as motivation. Let's learn together. Welcome to Lauer Power.
Welcome to another episode of Lauer Power, where we use adversity as motivation. My name is Chad Evans. We got Chad Lauer here. A big thank you to our sponsors, the Plumbing Outlet in Cole Township, as well as Cole Region Winery for helping us out on this episode. Mr. Lauer, we had a wonderful day at Glenmora Golf Course on Monday.
Yeah, Glenmora
National Golf Club.
My goodness, was that nice.
That's my favorite golf course. Dude,
it was a spectacular day. It was like, 75, 78 degrees.
Out there in Moosic, PA.
Moosic, up on Montage Mountain.
Yes, sir.
We actually got to meet a professional golfer.
We did. Brandon Matthews.
Gave us a couple lessons.
Yes, he did. He's pretty good. He was pretty good out there. But I want to say thanks to Ed Cristiano, Pat Mack from the Housing Authority here locally. And they do such a good job for the city of Shamokin and surrounding areas. And I had a wonderful time. Can you believe it? I didn't want to leave the golf course.
I can believe it. I also got to meet Matt McGloin.
Former quarterback
Penn State.
For Penn State University, also commissioner out there at Lackawanna County.
Yep, and we're always willing to learn. And I'll tell you what, Matt McGloin is one of the most down-to-earth people I've ever met. I mean, if I was the Oakland Raiders quarterback, I'd have a little swagger, walking around, but he's just like one of us.
I said to him, you look like a quarterback.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. And he has a name like a quarterback.
But he just talks to you like he just talks to you like he's just one of us, right? Yeah. It was really, really cool.
And he wants to be on the show.
He's going to be on the show.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about all the Penn State Joe Paterno stories.
But not today.
Not today.
Because we have someone that could have easily been a quarterback for Penn State.
Oh, she's the quarterback for our area.
The legendary Betsy Kramer's on the program.
Betsy Kramer is on the program. And before I introduce Betsy, I want to, first of all, look at this Stone State Entertainment mug. I mean,
I spare no expense.
My coffee is, I go iced. That thing is as chilled as it's going to be. But listen, Betsy has been a guest that we've been trying to target for a while. Mm-hmm. Okay. We struggled to kind of narrow her down, and
I'm in demand.
And she's in high demand. And she's told us, she's working right now. She booked like a month out. She's like, I got a couple hours for you on October 24th. Is that?
Yep, today.
But I asked her like on August 24th. But listen, she's here.
I'm happy to be here.
And listen, the reason why Betsy's here is this podcast is about using adversity as motivation, which has turned into us also using the adversity that Shamokin is facing as a city, as people in the city. And we've really gotten an outpouring of support for our advocacy for the city and promoting all of the positive things that are happening. So Betsy is the program manager for community revitalization for SEDA-Cog. Revitalization. Program manager for community revitalization for SEDA-Cog. And most people read about this stuff, Betsy, and I think they're like, what is SEDA-Cog, right? If you're not in this space, it gets very, very confusing. So before I ask my first question, the goal of the podcast today is we want to learn about why Shamokin. I also want to put to bed some of the myths that I hear of, where does the money go? Why isn't it used for something else?
Why is it taking so long?
Why is it taking so long?
Why is nothing happening?
For all these people that just think we can make $20 billion appear and fix everything in one day, I want them to understand the hard work that you do behind the scenes. So we're going to actually get into some of the projects that you've already won through your grant writing and also some of the things you're working on. But before we do that, I want to get to know you a little bit more.
Sure.
So Betsy, tell us how you became the program manager for SEDA-Cog and why Shamokin.
Sure. Okay, sit back.
I'm ready to go.
So as I mentioned to you previously before the podcast, I went to Southern Columbia. That's where I graduated. Proud Tiger. However, I am probably one of the biggest Shamokin Indian fans right now. So go Shamokin. So I went to school to college for music. I was in all the shows in high school, and I thought, this is what I want to do. And then I quickly realized this isn't what I want to do. And so I worked as a marketing salesperson, having nothing to do with my career, my college education. And we, for a couple of years, I didn't work at all, except for I was a stay-at-home mom. That's work. But we were at Disney World back in 2001, right a couple months after 9/11. So my husband said, we don't want to fly, too scared to fly. So we drove to Disney World with our daughter at the time was 3. And while we were there, our house burned down.
Oh my gosh.
To the ground. So we had driven down. We left our home about a Saturday. I guess it was Friday. I'm sorry. We left home on a Friday, driving down, and my parents called us on Monday that the house had burned. Of course, my dad, who you know, Chad, said, just stay down there and enjoy your vacation.
Oh my gosh.
I said,
wouldn't
way. That look a little shady?
Yeah.
Family decides to just finish out their vacation. So obviously we drove back home. The house had only been built a year before, and we literally lost everything. But on that drive back, we had a lot of time to think. And at first, because I am a very scrappy person by nature, as us Southern Columbia Tigers are, and I thought, okay, this was December 3rd, 2001. I thought, I can get the house, how bad can it possibly be? And then my sister Jenny called us a couple hours in and she said, it's gone. It's all gone. I'm like, okay, so maybe I won't be back in by Christmas. And literally the only thing that remained was our retaining wall that was like landscaping. It was gone. So after that, I just started, while I was rebuilding our life, and literally, like, how long do you keep paperwork? How many pair of jeans should you own? Like, I literally started thinking everything very methodically when I started putting our house back together. And let it be known, I'm not here to whine and complain, oh, woe is me, our house burned down. It was a minor inconvenience. I am not saying it was a tragedy. There are tragedies in this world, and that was not one of them. And it was almost, dare I say, a gift. Not a gift that I want to give somebody else, but when you have a moment to step back and realize the things that surround me do not make me who I am. That's a huge gift to have that mindset, because then you start realizing that better things do not make me better. And the people that loved me with a big 2,000 square foot house and all those things and all those clothes, who came back from Florida with like shorts and t-shirts, loved me the same. That is a real good lesson to be learned. So anyway, so that'd be 2002, we rebuilt our house, and I really thought, I want to help others with this, because I know other people struggle with, how long do you keep paperwork? How long do you keep, everything? And I ended up going to the Bucknell SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. I worked with Maureen Hawk, who has retired since, but now they have Ray Hayden, who's amazing. And the folks there are amazing. If there's somebody who wants to start a business, please reach out to them. It's free consulting. I mean, how amazing is that? And they're phenomenal. So anyways, I said to Maureen at the time, I want to help others with what I've learned. Can I start a business with this? I said, I would love to be a professional organizer to help people learn what to purge and what to keep. So thus began my Cash and Clutter business, which I had for 12 years. That's how I was on PA Live every Thursday as their clutter busting expert. Sometimes Chad would be on as he was co-hosting it, and the Southern Tigers would take over PA Live. But I loved what I did. I loved it. And I would go into homes, I would go into businesses. And so I would have to match the energy of the person I was working with and use my energy, because there are not lazy people. What happens is people are what's
the best way to say that?
The product of their environment.
Okay.
So what happens, a lot of times it's depression. A lot of time it is loss that they're dealing with. And so I would have to use my energy to connect with them and figure out the best way to have them let things go. I loved what I did. Loved it. And for 12 years, as I said, I left it. But I pretty much accomplished every goal I had set for myself. And when I did my business plan with the SBDC, I had done a 20-year plan. I had done all that by 5 years. I mean, I wrote a book. Yeah. I was on TV. CBS early morning show came and followed me around for the day. So I was on TV. And I got to the point where I was like, I wanted to help out more people. Like, I knew I could have started hiring people, but I also knew, and this might sound selfish, but I also knew people were hiring me for me. And I knew if I was bringing people on, I was concerned about that. And I don't know if it's selfish or if it's just protective of the clients that I worked with. But as I said, I just really didn't want to expand that way. And I heard that there was an opening in economic development at SEDA-Cog because my husband works at SEDA-Cog as the IT director. So anyways, I applied for the position, and it was for program assistant with economic development. And I love that I got to start at the ground up. So technically, I took a little bit of a pay cut to start there, and I had to work a whole lot more hours, quite frankly, than I did when I worked for myself. Yeah. And I did not have the flexibility that I had. However, I got to learn the ins and outs of economic development. But even more so, I got to see maybe where we should help more people and more businesses, because the misconception that I had was that economic development at an agency like SEDA-Cog, which I'll talk a little bit more about SEDA-Cog in a minute. But truly, we were working as an extension of county government. So we would help like large economic development projects with maybe a public-private partnership, like really big job creations. But we're not helping the little guy. We were not helping the small businesses. Any small business concern that would come in, for the most part, we would just refer over to the SBDC. So we got this grant called Engage through DCED, or Department of Community and Economic Development, and it was to actually go into businesses and speak to either the owner or the decision maker and say, how can the Commonwealth, how can Pennsylvania help you? Maybe not SEDA-Cog, maybe the SBDC or another entity. And we noticed a tremendous need in Shamokin. I mean, for those of us, I was born and raised in Neelysburg. For those of us in the area, we've seen the decline in Shamokin in our lifetime. However, we've also seen what's happened because of the Anthracite Outdoor Adventure Area, how that spurred economic development with outdoor recreation. We got to see like, hey, wait a second, something's going on there. Something's happening. So internally at SEDA-Cog, we realized, let's embrace this. Let's see what we can do. And maybe we can plant somebody in the city of Shamokin to kind of serve as the Julie, the cruise director of SEDA-Cog services to the community. And I was looking around the agency like, who are we going to pick? And our executive director at the time said, Betsy, I think you'd be good. Which I said, I've never written a grant. I mean, I helped All Home Days with like a roof project.
Who has?
I mean, hello. But other than that, I'd never written a grant. In my role as assistant, or as an assistant, program assistant for economic development, I would review grant applications. I would help with reporting, but I was not a grant writer. But I am an entrepreneur, and I am somebody who recognizes a community that, like, wait a second, like I could do good things here. And quite frankly, if you want to make an impact, why would you not want to go to the place that needs it the most? Hello.
Yeah.
So anyways, we reached out we had a whole list of all the different places that we were going to ask for support for this project to plant me in the city. We first reached out to Representative Kurt Mosser at the time, state representative, who was phenomenal. And he said, pretty much, look no further, I will fully fund this, to which he did. And so within couple months from us just sitting down talking with him, I had an office in the city of Shamokin. Didn't know a thing that I was doing, but I'm scrappy. And we hired a consultant to come in and do a good strategic plan. And let it be known, I am not one that's going to do a plan and let it collect us. Like that plan was my roadmap of this is what I'm going to be applying for. The bad thing is that most of the grants that were identified, nobody at SEDA-Cog did. And so I had to first ask approval from my bosses, quite frankly, can I learn these grants to be able to apply for these grants? And as you'll be able to tell from our talk later, I've been able to secure a lot of funds because the funding sources want to help these small communities. The problem is the small communities do not have the ability to apply for these funds, and that's a huge issue. So, through my work at the city, I have been promoted numerous times at SEDA-Cog. First of all, I was Community Revitalization Coordinator, and then I was named Program Manager for our entire 11 counties, which is very daunting. And right now, I have a grant that's funding us having a downtown manager, which is fabulous. And that also keeps me engaged in the city for 50% of my time until the end of June next year. And then I'm 25% of my time. And then I'm no longer designated Shamokin.
Okay.
So that's how that works. So I know I probably gave you way more than you asked for.
No, that's what we want. And first of all, I love your energy. Right? If somebody listening can't feel your passion in what you do, that's on them, right? So a few things before I even get into my questions, and Chad might want to add to this, but you mentioned why don't we want, or why not help the people most in need?
Right.
We're all three of us are Southern Columbia graduates, right? I've told my story. Chad's told his. We have a very passionate stance on the town of Shamokin. It's really our city.
Of
course.
The city of
It's
Shamokin.
my backyard.
I say downtown, but I mean the city.
Yeah.
But it is part of us, right? So that's great. Your entrepreneurial journey, I think, prepared you for this role.
Absolutely.
And before we even get started, I mean, the fire and the adversity, the way you describe that, I've actually never heard it described that way before. But we've talked about major adversity on this podcast, and things really don't matter.
They don't.
Right? So I encourage all of us to kind of dig deep and really think about, hey, what do we really want to do in this world? Now, back to business.
Yes.
Okay? So before we get into the projects you're working on, because they're abundant, I see so much negative feedback and so many negative comments whenever these grants are kind of announced to the public, whether it's on Hobart News or on the news item. Why don't they go spend this money somewhere else? Or, why is it taking so long? Or, this money should be allocated elsewhere, right? That frustrates me because I think that's just negativity and people blowing smoke.
Right.
So can you explain the grant writing process and then implementation process, and how there's time that needs to happen in between when you apply, the back and forth, and then when you can actually implement that grant? Can you explain that to the audience?
Sure, absolutely. So this is a whole world that I that I had not experienced prior to this. I am probably one of the most impatient people in the world, so this was very difficult for me. So first of all, I deal with pretty much every grant you can think of, from foundations to state to federal. All of them have different guidelines. All of them have different timelines. So right now we're just coming off of finding out who received, it's called LSA, or local share account. It's our statewide gambling. We applied last November for $1 million, close to $1 million, for a new pumper for the city of Shamokin. We just found out 2 days ago that, sorry, you didn't get that, you got $150,000. Where it's difficult for me. So of course, our official stance has to be, thank you so much. We are so appreciative for these grant funds. But then there's the part of us that's also like, that's a fraction of what we need. But when these funding sources, I believe they got $1.3 billion of requests, and they could only fund, maybe 300 million. They can't fund everything that we're asking for. So of course I'm super grateful. But then you're left with, okay, now I have to come up with $7.5 million, or not $7.5 million, $750,000. Like, where am I going to come up with this funds? And once again, like, there's timelines, and so that's a real difficult one. So I could apply for more funds through LSA again. We might do that. But once again, that's a whole other year, and it might not be successful. There are no guarantees on any grants. And the unfortunate fortunate thing is now that the city is no longer considered Act 47 or financially distressed, we can no longer check that box that brought us to the top of the list to get funds. So while I'm thrilled for the city, I take the pain that it's going to make it harder for us to get funds. The second thing is when we apply for funds, it's specific to how we write the grant, but that how we write the grant is specific how that grant fund wants it to be spent. For instance, when we did the Independent Street Makeover Streetscape project, that was a congressional legislative earmark in the budget through Congressman Musser. That's because he looked at our Go Shamokin plan, which was our strategic plan. He said, I want to fund something from this plan. So I said, well, we have this. And he said, I want to help fund that. The most, once again, not complaining, the most we could get was $2.675 million. Thrilled to get it. That was in fiscal year 2021 that we applied. And we are just now working on that project. But all that time has elapsed, and kind of knew $2.675 million wasn't going to be enough then, but now we're looking at a $10 million project to do just Independent Street. So when others say, well, why can't we spend it on Sunbury Street? We can't, first of all. We have it earmarked for Independent Street. Not to mention, Sunbury Street is a state route. Mm-hmm. City of Shamokin doesn't do that road anyways. Market Street, state route. That's something that the City of Shamokin does not maintain, or that's all PennDOT. That's not something that the City of Shamokin does. So anyways, back to Independent Street. So now there's a lot of work that's getting done behind the scenes, because what I had to do is, because I knew obviously that was not going to be enough funds, I pivoted how I was going to spend the money. I said, can we put a lot of the money into planning the entire stretch from 6th Street all the way to Shamokin and break it out into phases? Because when I'm applying for grants, I have to have shovel-ready projects. So I want to prove that, okay, I have this plan ready to go. Here's my engineering drawings. Here's how much it's going to cost. So what we're hoping with is we are still going to do some implementation with these funds. Absolutely. We're identifying exactly where to spend the money right now. It's obviously going to be Independent Street. Focusing on safety. We're looking at adding crosswalks, fixing sidewalks. But also something that people don't understand is Aqua is also replacing all of their water lines in the city. So we're coordinating with them too. So that's going to be happening in the spring. We don't want to be ripping up the road and then having Aqua re-rip the road up again. And also we're trying to capitalize on the fact that that work is actually happening. So the more work that Aqua pays for, the less money that has to come out of our pocket for that. So there's a lot of strategy that goes on behind the scenes that common people on the ground don't understand. They just know, hey, wait a second, we got these funds like 2 years ago. Why is my street not beautiful? Which I understand. Once again, I'm a terribly impatient person. And also 8th Street Bridge is getting replaced too. And even prior to that, SEDA-Cog JRA, our Joint Rail Authority, replaced a railroad crossing towards Shamokin Street. So we knew all these projects were happening. We're coordinating with these different entities all at the same time. But I understand how what happens is when we get these grants, like the LSA, the local share account, the statewide account, I saw it and I thought, oh no, $150,000. Yay, got to be so excited. Thank you so much for CFA for passing this. But then like within 5 minutes, the news item was on the phone with me. And so once again, I had to be like, we're so very grateful for these funds. It's a fraction of what we need, but we're so very grateful for these funds. But so what happens is when we find out that we got the grant, the news also notices because they peg that they see when Shamokin comes up. So then it's broadcasted. City of Shamokin got this grant. And so people see that, obviously. Well, it could take months till we actually get those funds. And because, once again, for this, it's a fraction of what we need, we're not exactly sure how and when we'll get the rest of the funds, whether the city can muster it up, if we can. So I think that's where there's a disconnect, too. The public sees the announcement, but they don't see all that's involved between getting it, actually having a written contract, putting things out for bid. Everything takes so much time. especially when you're dealing with state and or federal grants. If you're dealing with foundation grants, it's not that difficult. But when we're dealing with these big grants, it is very difficult. And we have to make sure we do everything, dotting every I, crossing every T, or we will have to pay that money back. So it's super important to do it that way. But let it be known. I mean, I am always an open book, and I always encourage people, reach out to me if you have any questions. Contact me. You know, there's no reason to have rumors out there. I'm happy to share whatever.
Well, out of that $2.75 million, how much do you pocket? How much do you take home?
Literally, I get nothing from that.
You don't take a percentage off that. You don't just tell anybody, we're going to fill a pothole on Rock Street, and you just pocket it. That's
the other huge misconception. Like, I mean, literally, I get nothing. There's not a dime in there for even SEDA-Cog. Like, there's nothing in there written for us.
Right. For your time and effort. Yep.
Yeah. So that's my, I mean, quite frankly, I am still in the city 50% of the time. So I allocate it to that. And there's other projects that I work on that, once again, I'm not actually funded to do. Sometimes it's a passion project and I'm like, well, this is my volunteer time. And sometimes I just chalk it up to, well, I am here in the city 50% of my time and I'm just willing to help.
So can you explain the difference between a state or federal grant and a foundation grant?
Sure. So we have several foundations in our area, from like Geisinger Foundation, a Degenstein Foundation. So they often, and in PPL Foundation, there's a lot of foundations out there. They do not have the same guidelines like state prevailing wage that you have to follow or federal prevailing wage. They also have a looser how you can spend the money. And usually their grant applications are far easier to write and administer. And these are amazing opportunities for nonprofits to tap into, quite frankly. Even to give you an example, when I got to the city of Shamokin back in 2019, one of the first things people said is, we want the steps fixed, the 99 steps fixed. So there had been a grant application unsuccessful prior to me coming that they had put in for $3 million to replace all the steps in the city of Shamokin. Problem is through multimodal. So there's PennDOT multimodal, and then there's also DCED has a multimodal grant. They had put it through the DCED multimodal because there's not a cash match for that. It was not successful. So I reached out to, because you know what, that's what scrappy people do. We reach out to find out, hey, why didn't they get the grant? And I asked the source. The worst thing they could say is, I can't tell you that. But of course, once again, they were an open book. Well, they're like, oops, Betsy, we see that. Well, the reason they didn't get it is, first of all, that's not a really good use for multimodal funds. We're really looking at multimodal, like streets and sidewalk, or incorporating more than one. And they said the other big issue that you're going to have with funding steps through state or federal is you need to have an ADA compliant component, and you will never make those steps ADA compliant. I actually had, and I am not going to name names, a professor from Bucknell said, well, is there any way you could put some kind of elevator system in? Okay, we'll work on that once we get an elevator in our city hall.
A stair chair.
Yeah, a stair chair. So anyways, where foundation came into play with that is Allison Williams from the city of Shamokin. She started this ground effort to, they raised half the money. They reached out to Degenstein. I brought Bree down and they said, is there any way you can help? And Degenstein paid $99,000. And we did not tell Degenstein that actually there's 88 steps and not 99, but
I think they're okay with that.
It's all good. So they could fund it. They could fund it where we could have never got state or federal to fund.
Now, I have so many questions for you.
I'm here.
So a lot of funding, from my understanding, is just for like municipalities or nonprofits. Is there anything for us private entrepreneurs? Like, I'll be honest, like, I want to scale multiple businesses that can hire as many people in the city as I can, which then is going to give them jobs. We're going to be able to collect more payroll taxes, all of that stuff that can be reinvested into the city. I'm talking really fast because I'm excited.
I'm soaking it in.
Where can private business owners go if we have an opportunity that we can get funding that says, hey, you want to do this, I want to back you as long as you can hire 10 people, 20 people, 30 people for the city?
So up until September 30th of this year, I would say there's really not much. And truly, there really isn't much. We got a lot of money during COVID time for existing companies, and the SBDC always has some funds for startups, not a whole lot, but some funds. I mean, if I had $1 for every time somebody said, well, I'm a woman owned, what can I get? Or it doesn't. However, so there's a new program. Actually, it was started last year. It's called PA Sites. It's through DCED. And last year it was funded by $10.8 million. This year it came out September 30th for $400 million. So, but that is for, I believe, 5 years. But still, that's a lot of money. And that can help fund private businesses. What you need to do is, however, it's still very tailored to a certain industry. It is to take an old building. Sorry, you just sold yours.
Okay.
Nice little jab. I like it, Betsy.
Well,
no, it's
you
good.
should have held on to
We'll
it.
buy another old building.
You should have held on to it.
Come on, let's go.
So you have to take an old vacant building, and they're looking for new industry to be put into that. They're looking for an industrial end use. And there's no minimum, no maximum that you can ask for. No match that's required. Although the more you have to leverage, it's more favorable for the application, but there's no match required, which is a huge issue, obviously. No minimum, no maximum. And the application, the first round is due December 31st of this year. And then every 3 months after. So it's on a rolling basis until the money runs out, until those $400 million run out.
And the reason, sorry, Chad, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the reason why I asked that, right, is like we're doing Why Not Shamokin, right? Why Not Shamokin? We're funding that ourselves, right? And I guess I struggle with it because like, I see so many nonprofits and they collect a salary and it's like, it's kind of a game, right? So I get it. I want people listening to understand that because I want funding for the city. I want private businesses to succeed. I want government to succeed. We just need more people, more jobs, more revenue. Sorry, Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to go back to Betsy about that grant. What certain kind of industry did you say? Is it industrial?
So industrial. They do want an industrial end use of it. That's not to say that we're not trying for others, because we have several that we're working on right now. But that's what they're truly looking for, to create more industrial sites in the state of Pennsylvania. That's why this is a statewide. This is $400 million statewide. But for your point, Chad, what you're looking at is to contact foundations to ask for. Yeah, that's where you want to look, and that would be I don't want to say it, but I think you'd be a good applicant.
Okay. And listen, not just for us, I want other people listening because we need to do this in droves. Now, there's this other misconception or myth, I believe it's a myth, right? That certain counties or cities or municipalities have grant money sitting there, but nobody's applying for the funds, so they go unused. Is that true or is that false?
So it depends. So with EPA, so I do a lot of EPA work, EPA brownfields. There are times that a community might apply for these funds and they are difficult to implement. That person who applied for the funds leaves. That money's sitting in the account. A new person comes on, has no idea what to do with the money, and sometimes that money goes back. Okay. So
it does go back.
It goes back. Yeah, you don't get to keep it if you don't use it.
Okay, because there's this myth that, we got this, $5 million grant, and then the building or the project doesn't happen, and they're like, well, some official's taking that money and buying a beach house, So, and I can't, listen, I don't think the government would just not go get their money. They're pretty good at that, right? So, but let's put that to bed because it's just not happening.
And let it be known that if you don't get the money first, which a lot of times you don't actually get the money
until
first.
The project
these big checks that you see put out there, especially
we've clearing out.
We've seen those checks. I hate to break it to you. You can't take those to the bank.
Governor doesn't show up a big fat check.
No.
Be like, hey, slaps you on the butt and say, good luck.
Yeah.
And those are really difficult, first of all, to get, but they're even harder to implement and to actually receive the money back. Usually what happens, there are reimbursement grants. To even get that grant, you have to prove that you have at least twice the amount of money that you're going to be put into it. Then you actually have to spend all that money. Then you have to go through all these hoops to get your money reimbursed. But yeah, if the project's not happening, I guarantee there's not a dollar that person has received yet.
Okay.
But let it be known, I know there's 2 of those big checks that people keep talking about for the city of Shamokin.
Let's talk about it. Let's do it.
And I'm involved with both of those 2 big checks. And believe it or not, there's a lot happening behind the scenes. It's just really hard. Like the one, I'm not going to call anybody out. The one is like a $10, $11 million project. So sure, they got a check, but that's not for all of it.
Right.
So, and then with COVID, so those 2 big checks that I'm not going to name names, they came out in 2019. What happened in 2020?
Yeah.
And then, we needed new feasibility studies. We needed all new numbers because the numbers, it was like light years away. Thankfully, the feasibility studies showed better results. But still, a huge misconception that those checks mean anything, truly. It's just, quite frankly, it's just a PR thing for the legislators who helped get the funds.
Right, and I would market the heck out of that too.
Yeah,
right, and that's
totally
okay.
Understand.
So I have 2 more questions before we get into them, and then I'm sure Chad might have 1 or 2 before we get into the actual projects.
Yeah.
Are there more grant opportunities available that we're not seizing that you just don't have the bandwidth to apply for?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. So once again, I stress this again. So 50% of my time, City of Shamokin. The other 50% of my time is our entire 11 counties of Pennsylvania. That's 296 communities. I wish I could somehow morph myself into 50 people. There's so many opportunities, and it kills me because we did these, what's it called? Personality tests.
Yeah.
We've done these personality tests at SEDA-Cog, and I came out 98% achiever. Yeah. But I love to succeed. I hate to fail. And there's so many, especially since COVID, there's so much money out there. Like Department of Energy, huge money. EPA, huge money. But it's just me.
So this is where I'm going with this. And this is not me being critical, right? And Chad will tell you I'm very impatient. And there's this, and I think it might be a little bit of a misconception that private business moves so much faster than
it does.
Than public or
does.
government. So I can't just duplicate Betsy.
No.
Right? But for leaders in our community, is there some off the wall idea or unconventional way for us to go get more of this money? Like, I'll give you an example. One of the things one of our previous guests talked about was we need a walkable downtown. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I get bored. I just go drive around the city.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm looking, I'm like, and I'm weird. Like, I don't look at what it is now. I look at what it could be.
Right.
It's just the way I'm wired.
Yeah.
And like, I get like kind of mad about it. Right. And, if there's a way for us to get somebody, even if it's volunteer grant writers, I don't know, right? But we would love to hear about that. And how any way we could help or promote that, I think Chad and I would be happy to do so.
Oh, I appreciate that. I think for me, I think we need to bring hope back into the community. Sometimes I feel exhausted from being the cheerleader. Like I'm always, we got this, we got this, we got this. And I also get frustrated when, like for instance, we have the Safe Street for All grant. And that was a really hard grant to get. And it's to provide walkability in the city. And we had a public event to have people come out. And oh my gosh, I advertised the heck out of it. I think we had like maybe 12 people from the community show up. And I explained why we needed the community, because we can get certain statistics from PennDOT. They have a crash data online, but I really wanted people to say, where are the intersections that are difficult for them? And so it's difficult to get the community is great at complaining, but when you're asking, like, just come out. I had donut holes. Come out, eat some snacks, and let us know where the problems are. So that's where I would love some of these naysayers to kind of to help. When we have these community outreach events, come out, help me.
Yeah.
And that I mean, truly. So I don't feel like there's grants that we should have applied for the city of Shamokin. I feel like I've really applied for pretty much every one that I could, that I've seen that would be helpful. But once again, since city of Shamokin is no longer an Act 47 district, it's just going to be harder. We applied for a $2 million grant for the American Legion building, which I thought was going to be a home run, and we didn't get it. And boy, I hate that. I hate to fail. It's painful. And I don't know if it's because we're no longer Act 47. I don't know if we didn't have enough legislative support. But I don't think anybody wants to see Shamokin succeed more than me. But the issue is, I also want Sunbury to succeed. And I also want like all these other communities to succeed. So there's so many other Shamokins out there. So that's where my pain comes in.
Yeah. And listen, we want the same thing.
Yeah.
And we appreciate how much of a cheerleader you are, for sure. Chad, any other questions before I go into the specific?
No, I just had an idea though. I don't need to talk about it now. I just
all right, we're going to do it. We're going to talk about it afterwards.
No, like you said, you're struggling to get people there to talk and really just ask questions and stuff. Do you have another one of those events coming up?
We will. So with the Independence Street Makeover project, we're going to have a big event to get people out for that. Okay. Which I think that one, people are going to want to know what's going on with that project. I think Safe Streets for All just seem boring. But, I mean, come out. These are important. And if you're going to be a naysayer, at least get yourself educated.
Is there a forum other than Facebook complaining all the time? Is there a forum where people can go to really talk about the issues of what they would want in the city of Shamokin, or what they believe that they need in the city of Shamokin?
Sound off.
Off. Right.
I mean, truly, I read it and I sometimes get pained.
Yeah.
Facebook, you could say anything you want against me. I'm never going to get combative. I don't respond. I just read. You are not going to change people's opinions on Facebook. I don't engage. Let things run off my back. I don't care. But I think, so the news item does a good job. Daily item sometimes covers things as well for the city. But that's a really good question. Like, where can people
have a bunch of donut holes and have an open forum and really talk about the issues of where they see the city of Shamokin going?
Maybe a town hall type meeting.
Maybe that's the next one.
So we had a really good one back in 2020, like literally the week before the world shut down, when we were working on our Go Shamokin strategic plan. And then also EPA was involved in the city as well through their environmental justice arm. And that was rebuilding our community. That was it. And so when Danny Gogol with EPA was involved, I'm like, hey, let's work together. Rather than having two separate events, which seems stupid. I mean, I know we had two different grant sources. We still needed to have outputs of two separate documents, but I thought we could work together. There's not enough of that collaboration, which is why we ended up having 262 people come out for one event, which was crazy. Crazy. We need more of that. We need more of, I don't care who you're working with. I don't care what your organization is. I don't care if I get a 0 credit for anything. I literally do not care. But I think it's important that we work together. It's
funny. So I'm going to take ownership of that with Chad. So I've had this thought of having leadership meetings, and like you said, I don't care if it's private, public, whatever. If you want to come to a leadership meeting in the city, we'll have a different topic and we'll host it maybe once a quarter or something. So maybe I'll take that on as my little kind of volunteerism.
And it's not a bitch session.
No, I'll throw you out. I'll throw you out. You come with ideas.
What, if I start yelling, you're going to throw me
anybody.
out? I want to see you throw
anybody.
Yeah.
Let's go, baby. All right. So listen, projects and proposed development. Shamokin.
Go ahead. That was good. We're keeping that in. There's no edits.
Shamokin.
Shamokin Housing Project.
Yes. So I can't.
2 second. I'm going to go through these. So 2 second.
Yeah, I can't speak too much of it right now, but there's a very very exciting project underway.
Okay. FQHC project.
Federally Qualified Healthcare Center. That's one of those big checks that came out in 2019.
Coal Region Housing Toolkit.
Yes. So that's something that we're proposing right now. That's not for Coal Region. That's for our Central Region.
Oh, Central Region.
Yeah. Central Region Housing Toolkit. That's something for our entire 11 counties.
Wow. Hotels.
Correct. Believe it or not, these are actually working underway. It's just a lot of planning and a lot of money.
Okay. So grant applications currently being worked on, $2 million PennDOT MTF Shamokin.
Sure. So that is for the Independence Street Makeover Project. Once again, that everything that we got from the appropriations, thankful, very grateful. We need a whole lot more money. So we're applying for more funds for that.
$712,000 and some change, DDAP.
Yes, that's the Department of Drug and Alcohol Program. That's for Oasis Recovery Lounge. Fabulous nonprofit. Go Danielle. I know she was on here. She's incredible.
She's
Phenomenal.
Yes.
And I've supported everything about Oasis, as you guys have known. Carnival was awesome.
Yeah.
The location is awesome. We need her and that organization more than anybody knows.
Which is why I charged $0.
Awesome. Main Street Matters grants.
Yeah, so we're working on a couple different Main Street Matters grants. One would be for an ADA compliant in that mystery housing project I'm working with. But also another thing that we're working on, we now have a downtown manager, which is great, Justin Bainbridge. But we're trying to get our community designated as a Main Street designated designation. We're working on getting City of Shamokin designated as a Main Street community. That's it. And so that's through Main Street Matters as a grant program because we have to plan a grant for that.
So $2.675 million. Did we already talk about that?
We already got that. Yep.
Okay. 11 counties, EPA, RLF.
Yep. So that is a revolving loan fund for environmental remediation. So if you own a property right now that you know has environmental contamination, whether it be lead paint, asbestos, or large underground storage tanks buried, as long as you have some kind of environmental assessment, phase 1, maybe phase 2, some kind of plan of remediating, call me tomorrow and we can hook you up with the revolving loan fund for it. Now, let's say so a brownfield, really quick. A brownfield is either a real or perceived notion that there's some kind of environmental contamination. I know back in 2017 when I started at SEDA-Cog, or even 2019 when I started in the city of Shamokin, I thought a brownfield was kind of like dirty dirt or an old factory grounds or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It's any older building or property that may, that's the big word, may have environmental contaminants. So what I like to say is look in your community, and if you have a problem property that you can't seem to get developed, my guess is it's a brownfield. And if that's a fact, we can help you out. So with the next point is we also have a $1.5 million assessment grant, and that's called a coalition grant because what we did is we have 3 lead counties. That's Clinton, Mifflin, and Northumberland. But truly, this is for all of our 11 counties, and where we can do assessments on your property. And they could be publicly owned, privately owned. So your old building that you so foolishly put away before PA sites came about, Chad, you could have contacted me and said, can we do brownfield assessment on that property? Absolutely. And what we could have done with that property, we could do environmental review, phase 1, which is pretty much a paper chase, like what was the building used for? Could there be contaminants? If we think that there's not me, we hire a consultant. I am not, I'm not a chemist, just to let you know. Not that I couldn't learn how to be one.
You could learn how to be a chemist.
Anyways, so we have a consultant or a QEP, which is a qualified environmental professional who assesses the property. And then if they deem that, yes, we need to do a phase 2, phase 2 is more of the testing. We do ground, air, water to see what the contaminant. And then a phase 3 is actually a plan of how to remediate. We also can do cool things with these grants, and that's reuse planning, where we could take Chad's old building that he foolishly let go, and we can say, what could this building be?
Right.
And we can create really cool 3D images. We can also do feasibility studies. Let's say we think that building would be a cool venue.
Theater.
Exactly. We could say this could be a really cool theater. We can do a pro forma of what you would need to, income, expenses, feasibility study. How do we take that building and make it a theater, including all the funding sources of what we'd have to go after for that property.
Let's go. You're getting me excited.
I know.
Half a million.
Should have kept that building.
$500,000. Yeah, Chad, what were you thinking?
Sorry.
Come on, Betsy, you're
Sorry.
Anyway. American Legion $500,000 construction grant.
Okay, so this one was another appropriation that we received from both Senator Casey and Senator Fetterman's offices. Thank you so much. And when I say both, it's in partner with. So we didn't get a separate $500,000 from each. We got one $500,000, but they both put that as one of their earmarks. And this is another one that, so wonderful that we were contacted months ago by both of their offices saying, just to let you know, that's going to get approved and it's going to be, it's in the budget. Great. It was put in the paper then. Fabulous. So I want to say I was at a conference when we were notified. I think it was like in April, maybe May when we were notified. Regardless, it's months later. I didn't even know where the money was coming from, nor did they, quite frankly. So it's earmarked in the budget, but you don't exactly know where it's going to come from. So now we know it's coming from HUD for this project. What this $500,000 is to fix the crack on the facade of the building and also to put in smoke detectors throughout. Quite frankly, we need about $3.3 million total for that building, which is why it was so painful when we didn't get the $2 million that we applied for. But at least the $500,000 is going to fix the imminent the crack. Yeah. And there's no smoke detectors in that building, which is terrifying to me.
That's unbelievable.
Every floor of that building is highly used. So once again, now we know how to get the funds. Then I have to go through hoops because everything's through a portal. So I have to go through their portal. And then we have to have a signed contract. Then we have to go through everything, putting things out for bid, doing an environmental review, like everything we have to do just to fix the crack.
Listen, that building is super important for our community.
Amen to that.
I mean, it is central.
Keep applying.
Yeah, it is central to a lot of things that happen in the town and the community, and I'm there often. So yeah, I'm rooting for that one.
Yeah, me too.
Safe Streets for All.
Yep, $200,000 grant. Yeah, this is for the entire city of Shamokin, and this is to make it more walkable, more safe, to integrate the biking, to hopefully put in someday a rail trail going through the city of Shamokin.
Let's go.
To also integrate the ATV riders in the city. So, so that's underway, and we plan to have that done by March.
Look at that. Now we're moving.
Yep.
Downtown manager, $200,000.
Yep. So that was the Appalachian Regional Commission, federal. So Appalachian Regional Commission is an amazing funding source. But for our area, it's 50% match, which is really difficult for communities that need help the most. So I was able to work with DCD's Act 47 implementation team to get $200,000 to match that. That funding not only planted Justin Bainbridge, our downtown manager, in the city for 3 years, but it also kept SEDA-Cog engaged. So I oversee his position through June 30th of 2026.
Wow.
Through that funding.
And then we have a DCED, City of Shamokin downtown manager. Is that an additional 200?
Nope, that's the same one. That was the match.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Oh, that's the match. Okay, I gotcha. Yep. Perfect. Comprehensive plan / zoning book rewrite, $100,000.
So the city of Shamokin's zoning book, do you guys want to guess when that was last updated?
1935.
Yeah.
1964.
64.
Close enough.
Yes.
1964
That's
is
crazy.
our zoning book, yeah. So initially, it was noted in our Go Shamokin plan, like we need updated zoning. I mean, in the original zoning book, it talks about you can't have public slaughter during your farmer's market. There's speed limits for horses. Like, it's really outdated.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So we knew we needed a new zoning book. Even though we had the Go Shamokin plan, when I went to DCED to get funding for the zoning book, the zoning rewrite, they said, we'll do that. However, you need a new comprehensive plan. I said, that's outlandish. We have this Go Shamokin plan we're already working on. Like, I don't love plans. I understand the necessity of them to get funding to implement, but plans just slow me down. But I understood that So the strategic plan with the Go Shamokin plan was really for economic revitalization of our downtown. I get that. Where the strategic plan, the comprehensive plan for the city is comprehensive. It's the entire city for 10 years. Like, where do you see your city in 10 years? And with that, that is the building blocks to then do a true zoning book rewrite. So that is all happening. That's all underway right now. So they said they were going to have it done for the end of this calendar year. I'm holding out hope, but I'm also a realist. I don't think so. Because once that's done in draft form, it has to go before our planning commission, it has to go through Northumberland County Planning, and then the city council has to approve it. So time's ticking, but
no, that's
yes.
Great. 300,000 ARPA.
So that is the ARPA account. That is COVID ARPA funds that most municipalities were awarded some amount of funds. So we're working on that right now.
Awesome. 100,000 DCNR and other parks grant.
That was part of the Illumination Station Pocket Park.
Awesome. 22,000 C2P2.
So that is through DCNR, and that is, we put in a grant to get a master plan for Volunteer Park, which used to be Claude Kaler 2. Great name. And also a feasibility study for a bike ped bridge to connect Volunteer Park to Claude Kaler.
Awesome. Listen, we're going a little long, so I was excited here, but I'm going to forego my leadership topic of the day and ask you a real simple question. In your opinion, where do we start? How do we help?
For you guys,
Yep.
You already are.
Okay. What else can we do?
I think anything to keep the hope alive, to good things are happening. And I know, once again, I am the most impatient person, and I get it. That's why I keep saying, reach out to me. If you have a question, reach out to me. I'm happy to share. There are times that I can't share, but I can still say things are happening, we're moving forward. Because sometimes you can ruin deals by sharing too early. Mm-hmm. But sometimes people just need reassurance that even though you're not seeing it happen, I assure you things are happening behind the scenes. Also, I'm not pocketing any money. Right. So, put that out there. I'm not pocketing any money. My husband's still the breadwinner of our family. Let's just say a lot of this is
well, hopefully
volunteers.
this podcast, this episode, set that reassurance for people.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
There are things happening in the city of Shamokin, really good, positive things that are happening in the city of Shamokin.
But even more than that, I mean, at the state level, at the federal level, we get so much attention for the city of Shamokin. I physically drove around Bob Casey in my car. I mean, I literally was driving him around thinking, this is crazy. Yeah. So they're federal legislators. And then it's just amazing how all these huge people are taking such interest in the city. And I get very frustrated when the biggest naysayers of the city of Shamokin are the people that live there. And especially when I'm such an open book. I mean, reach out to me if you have a question. But I assure you that I'm moving as fast as humanly possible to get these projects off the ground. As quick as I can, I'm making them happen. Yeah.
And Betsy, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate the work. We're going to promote it and highlight it even more than we have, especially as we're more knowledgeable about these projects. Chad, man, what an awesome episode. I feel her energy. I hope you feel the hope and the things happening in the city if you're listening. And I can't wait to get started on the
Betsy,
next one.
if you can just fill in that pothole on Rock Street when you get a chance, go ahead. But I want to, yes.
It's on my list.
It's on your list. But yeah, thanks again to our sponsors, the Plumbing Outlet out in their Cole Township. Thank you so much for your generosity, as well as Cold Region Winery. So we're looking forward to the next one, pal.
Can't wait to get started on the next one.
Are you a business owner, a leader, or an aspiring achiever looking to turn life's challenges into powerful fuel for your success? You've come to the right place. Get ready to unlock the secrets to turning life's hardships into your most powerful ally. Your hosts, along with our incredible guests, will help you tap into your own Lauer power and guide you towards the success you've always dreamed of.